right, friends, we're coming at you live. It is just a little after 10:30 here on this Tuesday, September the 27th. Welcome to the program. Not going to make this a long-winded event, but considering the fact that we are less than 24 hours away from what will be a major landfalling hurricane here in the United States, I figured I better do my part to show what's happening out there and to help get the warnings out for much of southwest Florida, western Florida, the Gulf of Mexico. It is churning at this hour. We'll start you off here with a live view from Key West, Florida, which has been the closest area of approach of this storm. Let's go ahead and take a look at that, and we'll get this thing started here again. Not a real long-winded event, but you see the flashes of lightning there. That marker, that buoy, famous for being the most southern point in the continental United States. I've been there a few times. But you can see, obviously, the water's not usually that high. So massive waves crashing on that here as we speak, watching the storm come in. All right, with that being said, during this update, we're going to show you live satellite, live radar. We're going to give you the very latest from the National Hurricane Center on this dangerous storm. And again, we'll take some more live views out of Key West and showing you where the storm's going to go tomorrow. It is particularly during the afternoon and into the early evening hours tomorrow that landfall looks to be most likely. Still some uncertainty, but there's a lot of people that are in line for this storm. A lot of people. In fact, you looking at some of the metropolitan areas that will be impacted, and you're talking about, legit many millions of people that are going to be in the line of the storm. Keep in mind, Florida, very, very populated area. So let me go ahead and get this shared out a couple of times. Over with my primary Facebook page, and as well, if you guys don't mind helping to get the word out that we're on here, providing this information, we can start you off taking a look at some of that satellite imagery. This is a visible satellite from earlier, and then we went night mode. So we went over to an IR or infrared satellite, but that does show you the current condition of the storm as it's now passing just due west of the dry Tortugas. That's kind of the furthest west point of the Florida Keys, and you can see where it's heading. I'll show you another vantage point here. This is the enhanced infrared satellite imagery. Shows up better at night, and certainly shows some of the finer details when it comes to the placement of the storm. The overall breakdown of the storm. This obviously it's quite symmetric, although it is beginning to encounter a little bit of shear. But this is a good view of the structure. The eye appears to be tightening very much, a little murky at this hour, but you can see all the darker bands that are lining up around that thing, and that's going to continue to allow those deep thunderstorms to go around the core of that storm, which will, of course, only lead to more strengthening. It is a Cat 3. In fact, I think I need to update the stats here. Yeah, let me get those updated while I'm talking to you. But a Category 3 hurricane. This is right now with latest information coming in from the Hurricane Center. Let's see if I can't get that in front of me. I'll begin to share that with you as we continue to share the information to our friends, letting them know that we're on here. But at last check, as of 8 p.m., we were looking at those winds. They are at 120 miles per hour, although that barometric pressure has dropped more. And I'm just recognizing this as I'm coming on here with you. It's now down to 947 millibar, and it continues to move off to the north and now northeast at about 10 miles per hour. We were expecting it to kind of take that northeastward turn, but that's what we're seeing right now, and that'll continue to impact the eventual landfall of this powerful storm. So, all right, let me get my social medias in front of me. That way I can kind of see who's on here. I want to continue to encourage you guys to share this while we're waiting. Should be able to get started with the latest satellite and radar information. We have some tornado warnings with this storm that I also want to make sure that we get as many of those out there as we possibly can as well. Right now over to our YouTube channel. Thanks for being on. I've got Jim Perry. That's Professor Jim in the house. Jim, thanks for being on tonight. And so that's on the YouTube front. Let's see who we have over here on the Facebook. Right now we are streaming live from YouTube meteorologist Jeremy Capel page. And then we are also streaming from our Weather Live media page on Facebook. Weather Live media page on Facebook. Find us on there. Follow us on there if you're not already. And it looks like we got a small crowd gathering on there. Chris Pate, hello to you. Andrea Whitcomb-May, good to see you on here tonight. Andrea, as we track this, the arrival of this very powerful storm. I did put that out there on on Twitter and also on Getter. So thanks, guys, so much. All right, let's go ahead and get you started. Let's jump right on into some of the data here. This is live. Data from our radar system. You can see high resolution enhanced infrared radar. There's the location of Key West. That storm just spiraling and spiraling as it begins to make that right turn. We do have a lot of warnings to get to, so let me briefly turn off the satellite information and we'll just kind of focus on the warning information. The darker red that includes West Palm Beach, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, that's a tropical storm warning. And then in the deeper reds from Marco Island, Naples to Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Punta Gorda, Port Charlotte, Sarasota, into the Tampa St. Pete area. These are hurricane warnings. And if you're watching closely there, I'm gonna throw on some radar information here in a moment, but if you're watching closely, we've had a number of tornado warnings within there as well. So let's take a look at those warnings. Latest imagery here, and you can see right now we have two active tornado warnings. One is south of Port St. Lucie, north of West Palm Beach. That's near Jupiter. My father used to live in that town, Jupiter, Florida. And then there's a tornado warning out here in the middle of the Everglades as well, turning on the actual precipitation bands. You can see the storm as it as it's making a move here. All right, let's go ahead and take a live look. We're going to take you down to Duval Street next. This is Duval Street in Key West, where there has been some storm surge flooding for portions of Key West. Here's a look at that right now. Storm surge flooding. But things are just fine outside of Sloppy Joe's. Getting a little wind there. A little wind. Earlier they were having wind gusts to about 70 miles per hour in Key West. Looks like some standing water outside of the bar there. And there's a guy, he's not walking a straight line. I can tell you that much tonight. He is not walking a straight line. Of course, they have kind of a different pace of life down there. They're not too worried about this. If they're not going to get a direct hit, they're not terribly worried down there in Key West. Kind of like permanent vacation mode, I think, for most folks that visit down there or live down there. Permanent vacation mode indeed. All right, with that being said, let's get the very latest from the National Weather Service, and we'll move up in the program, and then I'll take some comments. But let's talk about what we are witnessing with this storm. So going on over to the Weather Service, their latest advisory. This was put out here at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We will get an update at 11, so that should occur during this broadcast. So we'll have an update here for you in just a few minutes. But what I'm seeing over here from the Weather Service, and I'll share that with you. As of 8 p.m. Eastern Time, the storm was located about 20 miles to the south-southwest of the Dry Tortugas. It's now due west-northwest of the Dry Tortugas. Barometric pressure down to 947 millibars. Winds sustained at 120. That means we're seeing gusts to around 150 to 160 miles per hour near the eye of that storm. Moving now towards the north-northeast at about 10 miles per hour, so it was moving due north. Hurricane warnings have been extended for much of the Florida coast as we were telling you about. And then it goes on to describe what the expectation is going forward. The expectation is, in fact, for this storm to do some strengthening. And that's not exactly what we want to see. One of the main reasons is because the waters down here is extremely warm. You're talking about, water temperatures around the Keys right now, 85 to 88 degrees. Locally, 88-degree water temperatures down here. Needless to say, way more than enough to keep this storm fueling. Now, the upper level conditions are not going to be as conducive as we head on into the day tomorrow. It's going to pick up a little bit of wind shear, but we think there's probably going to be enough for this thing to at least maintain, but likely gradually gaining in some intensity as we head on into the afternoon and evening hours tomorrow, and that's going to play a big factor in how all this shakes out. So with that being said, let's see who we have on the program here tonight. Over on the Facebook page, I've got Chris Pate and Andrea. And yeah, guys, good to have you guys on, and thanks for any shares. We've got about 16 people on YouTube. Thanks for being in. JS says, does anyone know how many hurricanes hit Florida per year? That's a good question. Some years go by and they don't get hit. And then you have years like, I think it was 2004, when they were hit by 4 major hurricanes in 1 year. So I would imagine it all averages out over time. I would guess they average a hurricane a year somewhere along the Florida coast. Just a guess. Again, some years they don't have any. And then other years they have multiple strikes. But good question. We appreciate the headsy questions as always on this program. So I want to take you into some weather model imagery next, and then we're going to show you the individual tracks of this storm. We'll take another look down at Duval Street and maybe the southernmost location of the continental United States again. We are seeing sustained winds on this radar imagery that you're looking at. Right now sustained at 36 miles per hour, obviously well away from the core of the storm. The core of your winds are going to be located, right in this eye wall. So that's this feature you see right there. So that's where your absolute strongest winds are. The question is where it's going. Well, you don't have to be an expert meteorologist to see this thing is moving north, and it's beginning to shift to the northeast. So with that, let's go back over here to the latest frame. See if I can do that. Yep, here we go. Latest frame. So there, it's a big broad eye underneath that overcast. But it's looking to make a move like I don't like that. I'm gonna redo that. So here's the eye. Key West is right here. Let me point out a couple more places for you. Naples, Florida, right here. Marco Island, a lot of rich people live there. Here. Fort Myers. I used to vacation down there quite often. And then up here is Tampa, and there's Sarasota. Punta Gorda, Cape Coral, all in the mix. So it looks like if I place an X at the center of the storm, it's going to move somewhere between here and here. So that does bring, quite a bit of real estate that it's still in play. And again, with just very, very warm ocean waters, obviously that can cause some problems. All right, so there's that enhanced infrared satellite imagery. Got some embedded rotators in there. These have been going on and off all day today. Let's see if I can get the latest information from that tornado warning storm, the one that is located over the Everglades. We'll check that one out first. And there it is. I'll show that to you. Tornado warning in effect that goes until 11 o'clock for central Collier and southern central Hendry counties. The individual storm is moving northwest at 40 miles per hour. And again, this is not uncommon at all to get tornadic rotations on the outer bands of a landfalling hurricane. On the northeastern quadrant particularly, it's common. Okay, there's another one up here near Jupiter, Florida. National Weather Service in Melbourne issues tornado warning. Goes until 11 o'clock. This is for a storm moving northwest at 30, located near Jupiter. There you go. Currently, the signatures less than impressive, so we won't spend too much time on that. But with that being said, it is 10:48. I do want to show a couple of these weather models, and then we're going to show the individual tracks that are expected, and then we'll go on to who's going to see the storm surge. And some areas could see storm surges of up to a dozen feet, up to 12-foot storm surge. And this is going to come on top of what will unfortunately likely be a high tide for many areas as it makes landfall, perhaps late afternoon or early evening tomorrow. Timing is going to be critical. So let's move on over, take a look at some of the weather model imagery here. And we're going to start off with the latest run of the 3K NAM. That is the high resolution North American model. And there that thing is. This is overnight tonight. I'm going to pause it right here at 7 a.m. in the morning. Still a safe distance off the coast, but again, it looks very ugly. Maintaining strength. It's losing a little bit of its symmetry, but you can just see by the banded nature, the dark purples there, super intense. And then here we go. This is about noon tomorrow, still offshore, and then it does a whammy. It just does a right turn just south of St. Pete, maybe just south of Sarasota, very close to Sarasota, according to this model, which is the 3K NAM. Now, that's not the only model that's out there. Let's take a look at this one. This is a specialized hurricane model called the HMON. Higher resolution than the one we just looked at. But we're going to pause it here, 7 a.m. in the morning. You can see PGD, Punta Gorda. So that would be Fort Myers right about here. And then Sarasota's right here. Let's move forward in time. And this one makes that right turn sooner. It's not waiting until later in the afternoon. This is actually better as far as the tide, because the tide would be a little bit lower if it occurs at this time. This is about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so this is one of the earlier ones I've seen. But super intense hurricane and a ton of rain. It's going to bring in land. Let's see if I can get some wind information here. Yeah, it's going to give me wind speed. We'll do that in miles per hour. And there you go. Look at these wind speeds coming on shore. Whew. So those maximum speeds there, you can see obviously well over 100 miles per hour. If it does come on shore as a Cat 4, that could be 130 mile per hour sustained. And that's what we're looking at here, our sustained winds. So interesting. All right, so let's see who we have in the program, and then I'm going to show you the official forecast track by the National Hurricane Center. And we will show you where they're expecting it to come on shore, what time it's expected to come on shore, wind speeds, and the dreaded storm surge. And then we'll briefly cover rainfall amounts, which is going to be a lot. Some areas will see more than a foot of rain. So we'll have that for you here in a couple of moments. Let's see who we have on the program at this hour. And let's see here. Over on the YouTube page, I've got JS and Jim in the house. Thanks for being on, guys. If you all don't mind, if you haven't already liked it, shared it, loved it, all that fun stuff, as always, it is appreciated. It is 10:52, so that update coming in from the Weather Service, the 11 p.m. update should be coming up here in a moment. In the meantime, let me show you their expectations for the storm. And then I will show you some model projections as far as wind is concerned. But here you go. This is the official forecast track. No, not this. This is the official forecast track by the National Hurricane Center. And you see that M, right? That stands for major. Major hurricane means category 3 or higher. Essentially, the winds are going to be 115 or higher. That's where they are now, 120. So it is a major. But again, as we've noted, barometric pressure is steadily dropping again. That means that that wind will be coming up here shortly as well. Those two, high correlation, that's just going to happen. Okay, so this is what they're talking about with storm surge. And I think this is the most impactful part of the storm. Sure, the rains will be torrential. And yeah, you're going to have some winds that are going to be ripping rooftops off and overturning tractor trailers and causing some problems. But the biggest issue with a major hurricane almost always is the storm surge flooding. That's the amount of water that the storm is able to lift up, the amount of ocean it's able to lift up out ahead of it and then shove it on shore. And with this one, no joke whatsoever at all. Down there towards Naples and Marco Island, 6 to 9 foot storm surge. That's going to flood some lowlands. That's going to flood some homes that are not protected. And then you get up here closer to Fort Myers, Punta Gorda, Port Charlotte, and Sarasota. 8 to 12 foot storm surge. That could be really bad. That could cause a tremendous amount of damage. Into the Tampa Bay area, not as much because you're going to be on the backside of the storm. You're not going to get the stuff that's pushing on shore. You're going to get the overall storm surge associated with the swell of the eye. And you're talking about 4 to 6 feet, so not quite as severe. So that'd be better. Now, I mentioned tide is going to be a factor. So I happened to look up the tide chart. This is for Punta Gorda, which seems to be pretty close to the center of that track. And their low tide tomorrow is at 11 a.m. That would be a great time for the storm to come on shore. We know it's not, though. Some of the models have it coming on shore as early as about 2 o'clock. You can add another foot to the storm surge there. And then if it waits until later, that's 2 feet. 2 feet, that's just tidal surge in addition to the storm surge. So either way you look at it, yeah, it could be a problem. So, all right, with that, let's see what I've got for you next here. And there's a satellite from a little while earlier. I want to make sure I'm not missing any questions on here. I've got Cobes Galaxy, Port Charlotte, Florida, zone C3 miles in no volume. Can someone offer quick update via chat? What impact point? You're talking about Port Charlotte. I'm not familiar with your zone C3. Audio, video working, yes. I just can't hear it. Okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm glad everybody else can hear it. I'm going to give you guys as close a close-up look as I possibly can with the equipment that I have available of the tracks that we're looking at into the day tomorrow, and then we'll do a final check with the Hurricane Center before we wrap up this thing here in the next 5 minutes or so. So let me go ahead and take you back over to our primary radar source. And I want to take a look at the tracks, so I'm going to take off the radar information. And we're going to go ahead and put on all of the tropical information that we're looking for, including best track and forecast cone. That's the cone of uncertainty. And so let's go ahead and zoom on in there. We'll ignore those little tornado warnings for now. And so the best track is going to take it right through Port Charlotte. And that'll be, again, pretty close to Punta Gorda as well. And so my concern would be in Port Charlotte itself, you could have a tremendous storm surge anywhere, especially to the right of the eye. So if that best line represents the path of the eye, you could have a tremendous amount of storm surge flooding anywhere in here. So with that being said, I don't want to become too fixated on the central point because it could turn and it could head east, maybe towards Naples. Or it could go further up the coast, and that would bring in Sarasota into play. It does look like Tampa's going to be on the back end of this, but maybe just barely if it does that northern turn. So these are the areas that we're most concerned with. I want to get on in here, and we'll mention some individual locations. Sarasota kind of on the north end of the track. I would expect that storm surge flooding not quite as bad there, assuming that the eye goes to your south. And then you get down here towards Venice, Inglewood, the storm surge will be more significant. Port Charlotte, it could be very significant, and especially these Outer Banks out here. as you make your way into the Fort Myers area, Cape Coral, Punta Gorda. And yeah, there could be a tremendous amount of erosion on these beaches. Beautiful beaches. There's Sanibel Island. You know, one of the best shell picking beaches, you know, anywhere in North America, right here. So it'll be interesting once this storm passes what you're going to find on those beaches. They could lose a lot of sand, and they could end up with a lot of unknown sea creatures as well. Fort Myers, again, you're going to get some pretty bad storm surge flooding. And there's the south end of this deal. All right, it's almost 11 o'clock. Let's see if the Weather Service has updated the storm yet. Waiting for that 11 o'clock update to come in with you guys live tonight. And they're going to make us wait just a little bit long. Oh, nope, it's in. It is in. Okay, so they're saying maximum sustain is still at 120 miles per hour. 120. Let me turn that IR back on. And they're actually showing that the pressure came up a tick. Back to 952 millibars. So that's good. Movement is to the north-northeast at 10 miles per hour. So there you go. Tomorrow afternoon and early evening, landfall somewhere between Sarasota and Naples. It looks like ground zero may be Punta Gorda, Port Charlotte, to maybe Cape Coral. That's what we're thinking at this point. I'm going to take final comments on here now. And, all right, I've got Ginseng World something. This native Floridian says tornadoes are perfectly typical of major hurricanes. Absolutely. Perfectly typical, especially in the northeastern quadrant of a landfalling storm. Very, very common. They typically are quick hitters. They don't remain on the ground very long. They typically aren't that strong. But nonetheless, obviously, a tornado is a tornado and can cause significant issues. Gen X also says, looks like it's following Hurricane Charlie's track. It is very similar. Charlie went from Cape Coral or Fort Myers to, it went inland very close to Orlando, if my memory serves me. So possibly this one's going to make it probably back out to the Atlantic, though. I don't think Charlie did that. Let's see. I'm going to move you. Here you go. Take a look. So in this, once we get, into Thursday, Friday, could it come back out to the Atlantic? Most of the models agree it will. And it could do a little bit of re-strengthening out there as well. But right now, this is really the concern. It's not likely to, after it goes through the Florida Peninsula, it will weaken significantly. So if it reforms, it should be a pale of its current self. Obviously, a very, very healthy looking storm right now. All right, that's the latest. I appreciate you guys. How hard will this hit Orlando? Flooding. Oh, yeah, let me show you guys that, and then we'll end. Flooding. That's going to be the big issue. Let's take a look at some of the flooding projections here. And this is from the National Hurricane Center. And they're forecasting Tampa to near Orlando, especially north of Orlando, 15 plus inches of rain. You could have 1.5 feet of rain in that area of pink. And yeah, there's no doubt that will cause flooding. I know Florida can absorb a lot of water, but that's a ton. And that would likely result in some pretty bad flooding. Okay, with that being said, I am going to bring this one down for a close. Thanks for being on, all of our friends over here on Weather Live on our Facebook page. That's Weather Live Media. Thank you for being on. And then also thank you for our YouTubers over on meteorologist Jeremy Capel. If you don't already subscribe to the page, please do so. Come back, give me a thumbs up. We are going to do this again tomorrow. I will be on live as it makes landfall. That's Hurricane Ian, major hurricane, Category 3 storm right now. Is expected to be at least a Category 3 when it comes on shore tomorrow. Hopefully, it doesn't get much stronger, but it could. We'll see you guys tomorrow. guys have a great night.